Hi everyone, today I want to break down our 2025 household budget as a DINK couple. And if you don't already know, DINK is a financial acronym. It refers to dual income, no kids, which can describe any circumstances where there are two working adults bringing in an income of some sort, living together but do not have children. My situation is my partner and I live together. We are both full-time employed, and therefore we have a dual income household. I have previously made videos about being a single income household and budgeting during the time of my life when I was single and I was living alone. So if that's more relevant to you, I do have videos of that nature out there on my channel. And the reality of it all, especially in today's economy, is that we do have to budget still. We do have to be sensible with our money, and we do have to think carefully about the choices we make and our priorities when it comes to managing money. We have a very simple but powerful strategy of prioritization. It's a strategy I've used for my entire adult life since I moved out of my parents' house. And luckily, my partner Tom and I both think very similarly about how to manage money, and so it really was a no-brainer, and all of these things sort of fell into place when we were combining our finances together. And whether you are in a DINK household or not, I do think this budgeting strategy is brilliant for anyone. And it all works by identifying your priorities. For me, priority one will always be paying bills. We need to have a roof over our heads. We need to pay for food. We need to pay for our utilities. Our basic essentials that we need to live have to come first. We do not have a joint big pot of money. I'm a big believer in having our money and then his money, her money, or partner one, partner two money, however you want to look at it. And that way you have a combined expenses pot of money, but then you also have your independence and your freedom and your own money. And I will always think that is the best way for a couple to handle money in sort of modern society. From each of our net monthly income, we deposit £1,000 into an account where all our bills are paid from. £1,000 each works for us because we earn very similar amounts, and depending on your household, you might decide on a fair way to do it. I know some households say that fair is you both contribute the same amount, despite what you earn, and some people think fair is that you proportion what you contribute to how much you earn. So £1,000 each becomes £2,000 a month collectively into the bills pot. And our bills do fall just short of that 2,000, so there's a tiny little surplus left at the end of each month, which can build up over time, which can be used in unforeseen circumstances. If a grocery bill is bigger one week, or you're hosting people so you're going to spend more on groceries, or if over a longer period of time you need it for a household repair or something, then that tiny surplus, if left unused, will build up. Most of these bills are fixed payments, so we don't have to worry about them fluctuating. The only one that is more flexible is food, depending on whether we're having a kind of, if you like, a buy from scratch week when you've used up most things versus a use up what you've got week, you'll buy less then. Usually it balances out over the month to an average, and we budget £360 a month for food. And then we also budget £150 for entertainment, and that can be anything from a monthly date night, going out for dinner, or things like booking the badminton courts because we play badminton once a week, things like that that we do together that we can pay for out of that entertainment pot of money. But that still just comes out of that joint bills account. And everything with that is set to run on automatic because less energy spent on it equals less stress. And those of you that have been around for a while will know what I'm about to say is priority two, because it's the same thing I will say every single time, and that is savings. I'm a big believer that savings should be one of the first things you pay into every single month, not the afterthought after you've used all your money and put away that tiny bit that might be left at the end of the month. In my head, that is very backwards logic. The savings should be the priority. And I treat it like any other bill that I have to pay. That money has to be saved before I even think about free spend and enjoyment money, however you want to label it. And this proportion of your income will depend on your circumstances. Some people who do extreme budgeting can afford to save 70% of their income. I don't do that. And some people might afford to save 5 or 10% of their income. But the point is, you determine what you can work with, and you make that commitment. You set it up as a direct debit so that money goes off to wherever you want to save it, and that happens after all your bills have been paid, before you even start tapping into leftover money and spending it freely. And as I've already mentioned, as a couple, we have shared money for our bills and then separate money. We manage our own savings separately. We have savings goals and we've talked about where we want that money to go potentially in the future, but we've given ourselves the individual responsibility to build those savings. And so we handle those separately. So there's a figure in mind, there's a time period by which to do it. So we've individually got goals to meet and we will individually meet them, but with the same plan to move forward with those savings, if that makes sense. I feel like I made that a bit more complicated than it needed to be. And so between paying our bills jointly and having shared goals for savings, those are sort of our financial commitments to each other. The way we handle money outside of our bills, whether it's for savings or for anything else, we do independently, but not in isolation. We talk about it. We just think it's a healthy way to manage our finances, to give ourselves a bit of freedom and flexibility in how we manage it. And because we have that trust there, it doesn't leave any room for arguments or nitpicking because we know the goals and as long as we're working towards them, it's fine. But as I've already said, that really only works if you're on the same page in terms of your values when it comes to saving money and thinking about the future. And luckily, we very much are on the same page. It's like two people with a shared idea. Priority 3 is then personal expenses. These are either expenses that we only pay for ourselves, so they might be essential, or they are expenses that are non-essential but we choose to pay for. For example, essential, we'd each pay for our own medical appointments, think going to the dentist, getting an eye test, or in my case, a non-essential but something I prefer to have is my subscription to contact lenses. I could cope without them, I could just wear my glasses all the time, but I prefer not to. So that's a medical thing, it only applies to me. I pay for that myself. Examples of non-essential spending that we choose to pay for. We each pay for our own gym memberships. I pay for a Netflix subscription. Tom pays for a Spotify subscription. We do all of our gifting from this money as well. And we just split it on the basis of if I'm buying a gift for someone on my side of the family, I will buy that gift, but it will be from both of us. And if there's a gift on Tom's side of the family, he'll buy that gift, but it will be from both of us. And we just do it that way. We each pay for things like our own car insurance, road tax, fuel, and Tom also has a car payment, whereas I have always decided to buy my cars outright, and it's generally always meant that I've not had the greatest car. And so that's kind of like, that's a thing for him. He's enthusiastic about cars, me, not so much, so that's something that is a chosen personal expense to him. And then I pay for all the expenses relating to my bunnies. And after all that is said and done, then you get on to priority 4, which is your free spend money, your fun money, your enjoyment money, whatever you want to call it. Whatever's left, that's entirely up to you how you decide to spend it. And because you've already paid all your bills and you've already taken care of all of your savings, then that money can be guilt-free. You can spend it however you want and you don't have to worry about having enough money at the end of the month for this or that, and you don't have to worry about dipping into your savings. But at this point, this is where you have to be, I don't want to say strict with yourself, but just disciplined in that you don't spend more than you have. And in some cases, that might mean there's not loads left at the end of the month. But as a strategy for budgeting and a strategy for saving, it's probably the best way that we prioritise those other things and only have a bit of fun money at the end than doing it the other way around. It also gives us the chance to exercise patience and wait for the things we really want, and it trains us into positive spending habits about not wasting money on things we don't really want. I like to think we are both quite sensible with our leftover money. I think rule 1 for both of us is we will never go down to zero in our current accounts. It just feels too uncomfortable. And so we are quite realistic about what we can afford to do and buy. And you know, it's also nice not to go down to zero, knowing that if an unforeseen circumstance arose, we've got the money to sort it out. If we went on a trip and drove a long way and we needed more money for fuel than we would ordinarily spend, then knowing you've got a bit of surplus left is always good. Or if you go to the dentist and actually you need a treatment beyond just your normal checkup, it's good to know you've got the money to do that. And so whilst we can and are perfectly free to do whatever we want with this money, we are realistic. We both have hobbies that we really enjoy doing, and it's important that we keep enough money aside that we can enjoy those to the level that we want to. And if we were to waste money buying things that, you know, we just see and we impulse buy, then we wouldn't be able to do those hobbies like we do. We both love to travel, and we will book and pay for trips from this money. So recently we have put a deposit down on a trip for next spring, and we would both pay for that from this money that is left in our free spend money. So we would not use our savings for a holiday. We would not be dipping into our savings for that. If we want to pay via credit card just for, let's say, the security of booking, something like that, then we pay on our credit card knowing full well that we can pay it off from the money in our current account, from our leftover, our fun money at the end of that month, and that it won't roll over and it won't generate any interest. And we're both very much of the opinion that we would rather pay for something that way than dip into our savings. The savings are there for the future or for an emergency, and I'm talking a big emergency, because we would like to think that the money we have left over at the end of the month as part of that free money would cover us for most emergencies. It would have to be something really, really big to require for us to dip into our savings, but we both kind of like to see the money go into our savings and grow. It's not there to dip into whenever we feel like we need something, especially something non-essential. But I know so many people who put money into their savings at the start of the month and then just withdraw it again because they decide they want it for a shopping trip or a holiday or something. We would never do that. If we can't afford it from the money left over at the fun money, then maybe we wait till the next month, so you've got 2 months of leftover fun money or 3 months of leftover fun money to make that purchase or book that trip or whatever it is you want to do. And that's it. That's the very simple but powerful strategy of prioritization that we use as a DINK household in 2025 to budget our money. I hope you found this video in some way useful, and whether or not you are part of a DINK household, I hope you find some way to apply the strategy to your own circumstances. Thank you so much for watching the video. Remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you like content relating to finances, that is just one of the things that we talk about over here on this channel. So do make sure you are subscribed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Until next time, take care. Bye.